Hello, real estate investors. This is Erwin bringing you the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. And this is not a normal episode either. This is a solo podcast. Unfortunately, you're stuck with just me today. Because I wanted to do a solo because I shared an article on my Facebook, my Instagram last week from an article from the CBC about Epic Alliance's collapse. The link to the article, you can Google real estate company collapses, 500 homes affected, 10 million from investors across Canada missing. Again, it's an article from the CBC. If you're unfamiliar with the story, here's some points from the article. The founders of Epic Alliance, Rochelle Laflamme and Elisa Thompson, they were everywhere: podcasts, webinars, real estate groups. Real estate groups you and I know. I don't belong to either of them. I know many people that do. Quick side note, neither Rochelle or Lisa have been featured on anything that Cherry and I have hosted, not my meetup groups, not my podcasts, anything like that. I agree, they were everywhere. And on this show, I book my own guests, and I deliberately don't book guests who've been everywhere. That, and also I reference check everyone that I don't know, everyone that I don't know personally. In the article, there's mention of affordable housing in Saskatoon, which I find odd. Again, side note, there's a pretty decent sized Reddit string on the story of Epic Alliance. One person's example is to achieve the cash flows that they're promising, the rent would have to be over $1,500 a month on a property worth just over $200,000. So that sounds great for the investor. I'd invest in stuff like that. Doesn't sound exactly affordable for the people of Saskatoon. In January, the founders hosted a 16-minute Zoom call. So this past January, they hosted a 16-minute Zoom call to investors to let them know the business had collapsed and the privately borrowed money was gone, and blaming the local securities commission, the provincial securities commission, for the reason that the money was gone. That provincial securities commission issued a cease and desist order. It was temporary back in October 2021. An accounting firm has since been appointed to investigate. They've been appointed by the courts, and they'll report their findings later this month in April. Over 500 properties are affected. I see varying numbers, just over 500, some like 520 or so properties. It's a lot of properties, and there's numerous out-of-province investors involved. Again, this is me, not from the article. I know which organizations they were close to. The thing about real estate, the thing about organized real estate investing is, I find most people generally stick with the groups where they learned how to invest. So for example, the popular groups would be like, there's Rich Dad, there's Keyspire, there's Rain, there's Rockstar, right? There's all these communities that are out there, and most stick to their own groups, just because that's, those are the people they came out with. I know Epic Alliance was promoting at one of the other groups as well, and they likely got a lot of their investors there. Very, very sad. I first learned about Epic Alliance's problems back in December. So if you follow the show, you learned something good. In December, I had the gentleman from the Financial Independence Garage on the show. If you remember that show, I had the mechanic and the accountant on. I can't remember which one of them. So they have pseudonyms, right? They use pseudonyms because they still have day jobs, so they don't want their employers to know that they're about their investments. And yeah, so anyways, they want privacy. But one of them did share with me how they were having issues with their investment with Epic Alliance. He didn't go into details, which is fine. But I put that away in my mental database for red flags. Hopefully, all 17 of you listeners did the same thing. Because personally, I'm extremely risk averse. I have the luxury of having opportunities come my way every week, and I've been around for a while. I know exactly how the best of the best invest, thanks to my decades plus of networking, interviewing successful folks here on this podcast. I mastermind a lot with other 6-8 figure entrepreneurs, investors with 8, 9, 10 figure net worth. Remember, I had Grant Cardone on the show. I've looked at his Cardone investing model. I've had some great apartment building investors on this show. Anyways, when you've looked at a lot of things, the term "it's all relative" it means something, because I've looked at a lot of deals, and I've looked at a lot of deals since I started being a part of organized real estate since 2008. And so I've looked at a lot of deals, and again, it's all relative. If you look at a lot of deals, you're not going to do them all. You're going to cherry pick the best ones, and that's kind of what I felt I've done. Anyways, since 2008, I have witnessed some epic collapses of real estate investment companies. Some are small. It could be an investor with like 1, 3, 5 properties, sometimes even one. I've seen, yeah. In this real estate market, can you imagine still failing on a single property? People can make mistakes. People can be blinded by greed and make mistakes. Some of these collapses are still in court for hundreds of millions of dollars, being disputed, and hopefully can find it. There's several private lenders out there, even mortgage brokerages who originate private lending have had deals go bad. I know people personally who've had that problem, which leads me to think of the Warren Buffett quote. Only when the tide goes out do you see who's swimming naked. So my first exposure to an epic collapse was a husband and wife investor couple. It was mostly the husband that was driving that business, so we'll focus on them. We'll name him. We'll call him Mark. Mark had an over 50 property portfolio mainly almost entirely with joint venture partners. It's hard to have that many properties on your own. I'm sure over 40 of them were with joint venture partners. Mark would speak from stage of his experience and how to in raising capital and how to invest. This was in Hamilton that he was investing in. Mark contributed to an organization's joint venture education program. That organization sold a binder, an educational binder with lots of materials and samples. Mark's own materials were featured in that binder. It wasn't very expensive, so it was more of like a volunteer thing, I think. Then as Warren Buffett describes it, the tide went out. This was in 2009 during the financial and credit crisis and recession. Then the swimming naked moment was what everyone found out, sadly, was Mark had taken out a blanket second mortgage on many of the investment properties. And he used the lawyer who was the sponsor of the organized real estate networking group. Can you believe that? Can you believe what a violation of trust that was? So this was 2009, so pretty early in my career of being a professional investor. I started taking investing really seriously in 2008, even though we owned a couple of properties with my partners. This event opened my eyes to how even influencers cannot be trusted, right? Like I'll listen, and I'll listen, and again, it's not all sunshine and roses. I don't think everyone tells the truth on their successes and losses. And speaking with friends who had personally invested with Buck Alliance, these passive investors are now actively scrambling to take control of their properties. Their experiences working with back to Mark's story. The passive investors they then had to scramble. They were on title as part of being joint venture partners. So the mortgage money probably all went bad. Probably none of it was paid, and their experience and what these investors shared with me with their experience working with Mark was, and I've seen it repeated many times. Investors and business owners, lots of them have great ideas and visions. Executing small, like 5, 10, even 20 properties is doable. Obviously, the bigger you get, the harder it gets. Because you add tenants, you add contractors, you add staff. Right? Each of those variables are a challenge in itself. It's not easy to be a general contractor. It's not easy to be an employer. It's not easy to be a landlord of 5, 10, 20 different tenants. Add to that the time and cash flow pressures. So, for example, if you are a private borrower, some have made this mistake of starting the interest payments, starting the clock for when interest is starting to be earned when the private mortgages are signed. That places a lot of pressure on the borrower to be doing business. That's no different than having salaried staff or salaried contractors. The lesson is to only start the interest clock when there's actually a deal in place. And I'm sure all general contractors would like to do the same thing. They'd like to have their salary staff start getting paid once there's actually a job to be done. So again, not the easiest thing to do. Put yourself in the place of a private borrower and understand, like, you can see the pressures. There's many big investors that I know. They've shared with me the pressures of needing constant deal flow, constant properties that they have to work on so that they can keep their salaried staff busy, their salaried contractors. And some of them will even take on a break-even project just to keep their staff and to keep them busy so that they don't leave their teams and go working elsewhere. Right? That's just the reality of things. That's the truth about real estate investing. That's the truth of having a scale where you actually have employees doing work for you. And add in, it's not like it's been easy the last 2 years. Add in tenant problems and and related pandemic tenant problems and supply chain issues, and think of what it would take to scale to a 500 plus property portfolio like Epic Alliance's. You have a lot of moving parts. In chatting with the flipper client of mine, he flips in Hamilton. He flips only a handful of properties, like less than 6 in a year. I was telling him about Epic Alliance and how Rochelle, one of the owners of Epic Alliance, shared on her Instagram how in one day she bought 10 houses in one day. My flipper friend could not wrap his head around that. And he flips for a living. That's how he makes a living. He had trouble getting his head around how many trades he would need to pull that off. If you've never done it before, it's probably not the easiest to understand. But if you've ever done a significant renovation before, like say like your kitchen in your house, and say you have 10, imagine you have 10 kitchens to renovate. How easy would that be? And the thing with tradespeople are, if you haven't, I think almost everyone has had trouble hiring people for anything, for anything, landscaping, fence, deck, anything, tradespeople. We're in the middle of a housing boom. This housing boom has been going for a while. Tradespeople are in high demand, and they can go get great jobs with great benefits working for any union, any local union, right? It's not an easy time to be a general contractor. So, and also just a note, these properties at Epic Alliance, they've advertised that they usually need work. From the articles I've been reading, some of these have been boarded up, right? So they're not even occupied. No one's taking care of them. They're not tenanted either. So no one's paying rent. So I'm not saying it's not impossible. I never want to step on anyone's dreams. Maybe you can be the one to go do it. I just don't know anyone personally who could pull this off. And I know quite a few people. Needless to say, operational excellence would absolutely be needed. And that's rare to have without exceptional talent, often high-priced talent. I know, because I pay these high-priced talent. If everyone wants to trade places with me, I pay several six-figure salaries on this from operating this business. So from friends who've shared with me their experiences working with Epic Alliance, one investor sold a property to them. They sold it to them privately for under $200,000. And then out of curiosity, they went and pulled title to find 3 mortgages that totaled to over 30% more than he had just sold the property for to Epic Alliance. Sounds like a red flag. As an investor, that's enough for me to know I don't need to learn anymore. I'm not saying anyone's guilty of anything. I believe in innocent until proven guilty. But for me to, spend my time to research an investment or to let alone put up money, that's enough for me. Another client of ours, a new stock hacker, she shared with me that she had joint ventured on a house with Epic Alliance, and then when the tide went out, she felt deceived by the appraisal that she had received. That was 20% above market value on a house that was boarded up, not tenanted, needs a lot of work. She's now having to take over control of the property in the town of Saskatoon, where she's never been before. Not the easiest thing to do. And again, there's, I don't know for sure, but from the articles I've been reading online, there's 200 or more properties that are not tenanted within this portfolio, and they're all pretty close together. And I understand, like, Saskatoon is, it's just over 200,000 population, so it's not even that big a town. So to hire staff to take care of all this, to hire contractors to take care of all this will not be the easiest project to do. Yeah, so now there are many lessons to be learned and questions. I always have questions. That's what keeps me up at night. I always have questions. I do believe in innocent until proven guilty. But again, one red flag is enough for me to say no to learning more about an investment, let alone invest. So like Warren Buffett says, this is a different quote, I promise. It takes a lifetime to build a reputation and mere minutes to destroy it. Some of my questions would be as follows. Securities laws are quite clear around not soliciting investment from the public unless you're licensed, right? Speak to your lawyer about this. And then my next question is, the question is then, how is a company with 500 plus properties not listening to good legal advice? Right? I imagine their lawyer must have said something. And if they didn't, maybe not the best lawyer. Maybe you need a different lawyer. How many investors had never inspected these properties? So I'm not going to poo-poo just on Epic Alliance. The investors have to do a level of due diligence as well. So how many of these out of province investors actually went to see the property? I personally have passive investments. I invest in a REIT using registered funds. And I personally toured 3 of their apartment buildings. I think they only had 11 at the time. I knew where they all were too, because they were mostly in Hamilton. And again, I personally toured 3 of the buildings after I've been friends with the owners for over 10 years. Right? That's my level of trust. And also I only invested what I was willing to lose. I'm also told that, and Epic Alliance advertises this in all their marketing as well. A lot of the properties that they transact on, they're done privately, as in they're not on MLS or realtor.ca, which can be great for saving commissions. But those who participate are doing so without the help of licensed professionals who represent their best interest. So not just realtors, but what about the appraisers? For example, when myself or my client goes to a mortgage, gets a mortgage from a bank, the bank chooses the appraiser. In these private deals and private borrowing, who chose the appraiser? I don't know the answer, but I think someone should look into it. And also, if you ever get into one of these deals, a private lending deal, who chose the appraiser? Can you trust them? Can you send your own? If I wanted to know, for example, if I know, so I've hired I've had appraisals done on my own properties, and the bank never lets me choose, and that's done for a reason. Again, I don't have all the details, but there's more than enough red flags for me to ever invest in a project like this, any of these projects like this. And again, a lot of due diligence needs to be done. Hopefully people learn their lesson here. As I've repeated several times, for Cherry and I, our investing will remain the same boring, predictable stuff. We'll mostly own duplexes ourselves without partners. Cherry and I have enough clients in our lives. We don't need investment partners to be married to. We have some passive investments in our registered accounts and land development and apartment buildings. We stock hack for cash flow. We also invest in dividend paying stocks. For our stock hackers in 2021, if they'd followed the shared trades to a T, they would have received between 12 to 15% cash on cash returns. Past, of course, does not predict the future, but that's pretty safe, boring stuff, especially in relation to a lot of the real estate stuff I see out there. And also, this is not the market I really want to be overexposing myself. I'm already very exposed to the real estate market. If you see any sort of slowdown, it's not really a market I want to be getting to for like private lending on flips. Yeah, I know this all sounds slow and boring, but I've never found a more repeatable path for myself and my clients to get rich and for planning to retire comfortably. If you'd like to be educated on slow best practices to get rich, I can't recommend enough that you be on our email newsletters and attend our events for real estate or stock hacking. Pick your pick. Your future you will thank you. And that's enough for me. Hopefully it wasn't too boring. And if you don't like these shows, I have plenty of more interviewed guests coming up. And if you'd like to hear something else, or you have other show topics you'd like to hear me talk about, reach out and we're happy to do it. All right, stay safe out there. Thank you for listening. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy in a virtual free training class every month. go to investortraining.ca/podcast to register for our next class. I publish an episode here every week, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing, register for our next free virtual training class at investortraining.ca/podcast. Again, thanks for listening to the show. Talk to you next week.